During electrical licensing exams, apprentices are generally permitted to use tabs in their codebooks, but there are specific rules governing their use. It's crucial to understand these regulations to avoid any issues during the exam. When it comes to the type of tabs allowed, there are mainly two categories. Firstly, factory-produced tabs specifically designed for the codebook, such as those from underwriters' laboratories, are generally accepted. Secondly, handwritten or printed tabs are also permissible, but they must adhere to certain requirements. These requirements typically include being clearly and legibly printed or written, being on adhesive paper that does not damage the codebook, and being limited to a specific number per volume, often around 50. Regarding tab placement, tabs can usually be placed on the edges or the front of the pages. However, it is essential that tabs do not cover or obscure any text or code sections. Always ensure that the information on the page remains fully visible. There are also restrictions on how tabs can be used. Tabs should not be used to highlight or mark specific code sections, nor should they be used to cross-reference different code sections. The purpose of tabs is to help you quickly locate relevant sections, not to provide additional notes or annotations. For effective tabbing practices, focus on commonly used articles, tables, and sections. Use descriptive labels for your tabs to make it easier to find the information you need quickly. However, it is also important to limit the number of tabs to prevent information overload. Too many tabs can become confusing and counterproductive. Always refer to the latest official guidelines from the relevant Electrical Administrative Board. Regulations can change, and it is your responsibility to stay informed. To clarify, electrical administrative boards typically do not provide pre-made tabs. Apprentices are responsible for creating or purchasing their own tabs that meet the specified guidelines. It is also highly recommended to practice using tabs before the exam to familiarize yourself with the location of commonly used code sections. This will help you become more efficient in navigating the codebook during the actual test. The use of tabs can be a valuable tool during electrical exams, but it is important to use them correctly and in accordance with the established rules. By understanding the type of tabs allowed, placement guidelines, and restrictions, you can maximize their effectiveness and improve your exam performance. Let's delve into some specific examples and scenarios to further clarify the proper use of tabs in your codebook. Imagine you frequently refer to Article 250, one for grounding and bonding requirements. A well-placed tab labeled grounding can quickly guide you to this section. However, you should not use the tab to write out specific grounding requirements or calculations. The tab's purpose is simply to mark the location of the article. Similarly, if you often need to consult Table 310.16 for conductor ampacity, a tab labeled ampacity can save you valuable time. But again, do not use the tab to record ampacity values for different conductor sizes. The table itself provides that information. Consider the scenario where you need to find the requirements for installing receptacles in a dwelling unit. You might place a tab on Article 210.52, which covers receptacle outlets required in dwelling units. The tab helps you quickly locate the relevant article, but it should not be used to summarize the requirements or to make notes about specific installation scenarios. It is also important to understand what constitutes adhesive paper that does not damage the codebook. Avoid using strong adhesives that could tear or leave residue on the pages. Instead, opt for tabs with removable adhesive that can be easily repositioned or removed without causing damage. When creating handwritten or printed tabs, ensure that the labels are clear and concise. Use a legible font or handwriting, and avoid abbreviations or jargon that you might not understand later. The goal is to create tabs that are easily identifiable and informative at a glance. Remember that the restriction against highlighting or marking specific code sections applies to the tabs themselves. Do not use different colored tabs or other visual cues to indicate the importance of certain sections. All tabs should serve the same basic function to mark the location of a particular article, table, or section. The prohibition against using tabs to cross-reference different code sections is intended to prevent you from creating a complex system of interconnected tabs that could be confusing and time-consuming to navigate. Each tab should point to a specific location in the codebook, not to other tabs or sections. Keep in mind that the rules regarding tab usage are subject to interpretation by the exam proctors. If you are unsure about whether a particular type of tab or placement is allowed, it is always best to err on the side of caution and avoid using it. Before the exam, take the time to carefully review your codebook and remove any tabs that do not comply with the rules. This will help you avoid any potential issues during the test. In addition to following the specific rules for tab usage, it is also important to develop a strategic approach to tabbing your codebook. Think about the types of questions that are likely to be asked in the exam and identify the code sections that are most relevant to those topics. Prioritize tabbing those sections to ensure that you can quickly find the information you need. Consider tabbing sections related to general wiring methods, overcurrent protection, grounding and bonding, equipment installation, and special occupancies. These are all common topics that are frequently covered on electrical exams. When deciding what to tab, focus on sections that contain essential information such as tables, formulas, and specific requirements. Avoid tabbing sections that contain only general information or definitions. Remember that the goal is to create a codebook that is easy to navigate and that allows you to quickly find the information you need to answer exam questions accurately and efficiently. Finally, keep in mind that the use of tabs is just one aspect of preparing for the electrical exam. It is also important to study the codebook thoroughly, to practice answering sample questions, and to familiarize yourself with the exam format. By combining a well-tabbed codebook with a solid understanding of the electrical code, you can increase your chances of success in the exam. Always ensure that you are using the most up-to-date version of the National Electrical Code, often referred to as the NEC. Code cycles change every 3 years, and using an outdated codebook could lead to incorrect answers in the exam. Familiarize yourself with the structure of the NEC. Understanding how the codebook is organized will help you quickly locate the information you need. The NEC is divided into chapters, articles, parts, and sections, each covering a specific topic. Learn how to use the index effectively. The index is a valuable tool for finding specific information in the NEC. Practice using the index to locate different topics and requirements. Pay attention to the scope of each article. The scope defines the areas that the article covers. Understanding the scope will help you determine whether a particular article applies to a specific situation. Be aware of mandatory rules versus permissive rules. Mandatory rules use the word shall, while permissive rules use the word shall be permitted. It is important to distinguish between these types of rules to ensure compliance with the code. Understand the difference between grounding and bonding. Grounding and bonding are two distinct concepts that are often confused. Grounding is the connection of electrical equipment to the earth, while bonding is the connection of electrical equipment to each other. Learn how to calculate conductor ampacity. Conductor ampacity is the maximum current that a conductor can carry without exceeding its temperature rating. Table 310.16 in the NEC provides ampacity values for different conductor sizes and insulation types. Know how to size overcurrent protection devices. Overcurrent protection devices, such as circuit breakers and fuses, are designed to protect electrical circuits from overloads and short circuits. The NEC provides rules for sizing overcurrent protection devices based on the ampacity of the conductors they protect. Understand the requirements for receptacle spacing in dwelling units. Article 210.52 of the NEC specifies the requirements for receptacle spacing in dwelling units. These requirements are intended to ensure that receptacles are conveniently located throughout the dwelling. Be familiar with the requirements for GFCI protection. Ground fault circuit interrupters, or GFCIs, are designed to protect people from electric shock. The NEC requires GFCI protection in certain locations, such as bathrooms, kitchens, and outdoor areas. Understand the requirements for RSI protection. Arc fault circuit interrupters, or RSIs, are designed to protect against electrical fires. The NEC requires RSI protection in certain locations, such as bedrooms. Be familiar with the requirements for equipment grounding. Article 250 of the NEC provides the requirements for equipment grounding. Equipment grounding is intended to provide a low impedance path for fault current to return to the source, which helps to trip over current protection devices. Understand the requirements for bonding metal water piping. The NEC requires metal water piping systems to be bonded to the electrical system. This is intended to prevent the water piping from becoming energized in the event of a fault. Be familiar with the requirements for swimming pools. Article 680 of the NEC provides the requirements for swimming pools. These requirements are intended to ensure the safety of people using swimming pools. Understand the requirements for hazardous locations. Articles 500 through 516 of the NEC provide the requirements for hazardous locations. Hazardous locations are areas where flammable gases, vapors, or dust may be present. Be familiar with the requirements for emergency systems. Article 700 of the NEC provides the requirements for emergency systems. Emergency systems are designed to provide power to essential equipment during a power outage. Understand the requirements for healthcare facilities. Article 517 of the NEC provides the requirements for healthcare facilities. These requirements are intended to ensure the safety of patients and staff in healthcare facilities. Be familiar with the requirements for communications systems. Chapter 8 of the NEC provides the requirements for communications systems such as telephone, data, and cable television. Understand the requirements for low-voltage systems. Chapter 7 of the NEC provides the requirements for low-voltage systems such as alarm systems and control circuits. Consider attending a code review course. A code review course can help you refresh your knowledge of the NEC and prepare for the electrical exam. Practice answering sample questions. There are many resources available that provide sample questions for the electrical exam. Practicing answering these questions will help you identify areas where you need to improve your knowledge. Take a practice exam. Taking a practice exam under timed conditions can help you get a feel for the actual exam and identify any areas where you are struggling. Get plenty of rest before the exam. Being well rested will help you focus and perform your best in the exam. Arrive at the exam location early. Arriving early will give you time to relax and prepare before the exam begins. Read the instructions carefully. Before you start the exam, take the time to read the instructions carefully. This will help you avoid making any mistakes. Manage your time wisely. The electrical exam is typically timed, so it is important to manage your time wisely. Don't spend too much time on any one question. If you are unsure of the answer, skip it and come back to it later. Read each question carefully. Make sure you understand what the question is asking before you attempt to answer it. Eliminate incorrect answers. If you are unsure of the answer to a question, try to eliminate any answers that you know are incorrect. This will increase your chances of choosing the correct answer. Use the process of elimination. If you are still unsure of the answer after eliminating incorrect answers, try to use the process of elimination to narrow down your choices. Check your work. If you have time, review your answers before submitting the exam. This will help you catch any mistakes that you may have made. Stay calm and confident. The electrical exam can be stressful, but it is important to stay calm and confident. Believe in yourself and your ability to pass the exam. Always consult the most recent edition of the NEC and any applicable local amendments. Local jurisdictions may have their own electrical codes that differ from the NEC. Be sure to comply with all applicable codes and regulations. Consult with experienced electricians or instructors. If you have any questions about the NEC or the electrical exam, don't hesitate to consult with experienced electricians or instructors. They can provide valuable insights and guidance. Remember that the electrical exam is designed to assess your knowledge of the NEC and your ability to apply it in real-world situations. By studying the code book thoroughly, practicing answering sample questions, and following the tips outlined above, you can increase your chances of success on the exam. Focus on understanding the underlying principles of electrical theory and practice. Don't just memorize the code rules, strive to understand why they are in place. This will help you apply the code more effectively in different situations. Develop strong problem-solving skills. The electrical exam often includes questions that require you to apply your knowledge to solve practical problems. Practice solving these types of problems to improve your skills. Stay up to date with the latest changes in the electrical industry. The electrical industry is constantly evolving, so it is important to stay up to date with the latest changes. Read industry publications, attend conferences, and take continuing education courses to stay informed. Network with other electricians. Networking with other electricians can provide you with valuable learning opportunities and support. Attend local chapter meetings, participate in online forums, and connect with other electricians on social media. Consider becoming a licensed electrical contractor. If you are interested in starting your own electrical business, you will need to become a licensed electrical contractor. The requirements for becoming a licensed electrical contractor vary by jurisdiction. Obtain the necessary permits and inspections. Before starting any electrical work, be sure to obtain the necessary permits and inspections from your local building department. This will ensure that your work complies with all applicable codes and regulations. Follow safe work practices. Electrical work can be dangerous, so it is important to follow safe work practices at all times. Wear appropriate personal protective equipment, such as safety glasses, gloves, and a hard hat. De-energize circuits before working on them. Always de-energize electrical circuits before working on them. Use a voltage tester to verify that the circuit is de-energized. Lockout and tagout procedures. Follow lockout and tagout procedures to prevent circuits from being accidentally energized while you are working on them. Respect electricity. Electricity is a powerful force that can cause serious injury or death. Always respect electricity and take the necessary precautions to protect yourself and others. By following these guidelines, you can ensure that you are prepared for the electrical exam and that you are able to perform electrical work safely and effectively.